Now time to welcome back Rob Lees from Mortgage Choice Blue Mountains in Penrith for our weekly finance segment. And today, Rob, we're going to be talking about
construction loans.
Construction loans.
That's right.
So Rob, under what circumstances will people require a construction loan? And are there different types of construction loans or different ways to fund a building project?
Sure. I think probably everyone at some point will want some kind of money to do some kind of building work because we really like spending money on our homes, don't we?
We do.
So not everyone needs a construction loan for that. The best way to pay for building work is cash. So obviously that's a lot easier if you've got cash, but not everyone's got cash. So if you need if you've got enough equity in your property and you're going to do an extension or maybe a little bit of a renovation, you normally can just get an increase on your loan we'll call it a cash out loan, where it might be the only evidence that's required in addition to what you'd normally provide would be maybe a quote from the builder or a tender, and the lender will just advance the money and you just control that and make the payments to the builder. You need a construction loan if you don't already have enough equity in the property. And so then the lender takes control of the process, and you need a construction loan, and the lender will make progress payments to the builder, assuming it is that you're doing you are actually doing it through a builder. The other type of construction loan is an owner-builder loan. Everyone's heard of owner-builders, haven't they?
Yes.
And banks do not like owner-builders. They don't like owner-builders because owner-builders always run out of money. And the house next to mine is a very good example where people there bought the house. We've been living next to a construction site for 3 years. They bought this little cottage and they knocked it down and they were going to rebuild. And someone was pottering around there for about 3 years. And there's a big hole in the ground. And eventually, maybe they ran out of money, and now it's been sold. Now with no building on there. So that's why banks don't like owner builders. So there's a lot of restrictions on owner builder loans and maximum percentages that they'll lend, which are very restrictive. If you're a licensed builder, 75-80% of the at completion value. If you're not a licensed builder, about 60%, because of the risk involved for the banks. And a lot of banks won't touch them, and there's probably only about 3 or 4 that will.
Gee, but if you've got some money tucked away and you can afford to do it out of your own back pocket,
it's a lot easier. Cash gives you a lot more control, so it's the better option.
Okay, so what are some of the risks and challenges associated with construction loans?
I think the first one is that it's inconvenient, obviously, having a building project there, and it can be costly. So, for example, if we have lots of clients who might be living in an owner-occupied property now, and they've bought land and now they want to build. So they'd really prefer to stay in the house they're in now, and if they do, they've still got a loan on that house, then they've got a loan for the land loan, then they've got a loan for the construction loan while the house is being built. So it can be very, very expensive. And in some cases, it isn't affordable. The bank won't approve the loan under those circumstances. So they've actually got to sell the house, rent for a while, and then build. And so it can be really unsettling and it can be very costly. The second problem is valuations. So the bank's only going to lend according to what the valuation is. If it's a construction loan where someone's building on a vacant block of land, normally those valuations come in okay. It would normally be the value of the land plus the construction contract. That's okay. But if people are doing a knockdown rebuild or maybe an extension on their current home, valuations are very conservative. So if someone has a property that's worth $500,000 and they're going to spend $150,000 on an extension, it will be very, very unlikely that property would be worth $650,000 at the end of the project. So usually valuations can be a big issue and can sometimes be the block to really being able to get the lending that clients require.
Yeah, so you can overcapitalise as well.
Yeah, and that's another risk too, very much so. So again, you look at what you're spending, and like that example there, your house is worth $500, you're spending $150. You'd like to think your house would be worth $650, but you look at all the houses down the street and they're all selling for $500,000. It's very unlikely that you're going to have a home worth $650 at the end of the project.
Yeah, still, it's okay if you've got the money to do that and you want to do it for yourself, not so much for resale value.
They're all the issues that are involved in trying to work it out. And, owner builders, even more difficult because of often there's underestimate of costs I've got an owner builder I'm doing a loan for at the moment. Happens to be a family member, my wife's brother, in fact, and he's a builder, licensed builder, and the loan that was approved was less than what he wanted, about $30,000 less. Because of the way they assess these loans, they don't like them. And then I was driving up here this morning, and then he realised he hadn't included his GST and his cost estimates. Oh. So again, and these are the sorts of issues that can occur with when you're dealing with these projects as an owner-builder. So there's all kinds of things that can happen.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Well, let's have a little more music. Here's Tina Arena with I Only Want to Be With You.
The great Australian singer, Australian, French, Italian singer, born in Australia, Tina Arena, I Only Want to Be With You. I think that's a Dusty Springfield classic. So we're back with Rob Lees. Rob, what is the process for applying for a construction loan, and what additional documentation is required?
Yeah, probably before you get to the application stage, what I'd recommend is a conversation with your mortgage broker, because there's so many variables in these kinds of loans, just to talk it through and to do some numbers and to explore the options, what options are there, before taking the next step and paying money to an architect to design the building that you want to do and all that sort of thing. I mean, I have a lot of conversations with people who are just, their families, the family's growing, and they're just trying to work out what to do. Should we stay where we are and extend, or should we sell up and go elsewhere? So all of those sorts of options need to be explored in the process. So things like we were talking about valuations, I can kind of do some numbers to kind of work out what the client's thinking about, and if they're going to do this project, if it's an extension or something like that, that's going to fit in the ballpark of the sort of valuation that we're looking at. So that kind of conversation is very, very important before steps are made to start talking with builders and getting quotes and all that kind of thing. We're not really ready to put in a loan application, assuming a builder's going to be involved and it's going to be an actual construction loan. We're not ready to do that until we've got the building plans, the detailed specifications, and a fixed builder's contract, fixed amount contract from a builder. And once we've got that, it's just the normal requirements for a loan that go along with that. And when that's submitted, then the lender will do a valuation based on, it would be an at completion valuation based on the fixed price contract, the building plans and specifications and so on. There's a couple of lenders that allow us to actually do valuations before we proceed with the application. That's even better, particularly when we want to get the right valuation before we know that the loan's going to be able to go ahead.
So where's the cut-off line on what is and what isn't classified as a construction per se? So, for example, we are looking at putting a new roof on the house. Mm. Now, that doesn't add to the volume of the house. It does need to be done by proper builders. Would that be classified as a construction?
Not necessarily. So, as I say, you don't always need a construction loan as such. Construction loan is where the bank controls the process and there's progress payments paid to the builder. So if you've got enough equity in your property, you'd simply, I don't know, if that was $20,000, you'd probably just get a quote. In fact, $20,000, you probably wouldn't even need that. You'd just apply for an increase on your home loan and it just would be given as a cash out.
Rob, you made mention of the choice between extending a house or buying a new home. Do you have any sense, has there been a swing back to people actually extending their existing property rather than actually buying a new home? Is there sort of a sense that it's leaning more towards the extension than buying new property?
I think more so in the mountains, people are more inclined to want to extend because there's not a lot of vacant land available. So it's really very, very rare.
Rare as hen's teeth up here, isn't it? Yeah.
Not so much down in Wimberley. There's a lot down there from the properties that were burned out last year. So we're doing a lot more than normal. But a lot of people, people want they like where they live. They've got great neighbours. It's a good location. So they're prepared to spend the money on an extension. And in some cases, even if that doesn't necessarily add dollar for dollar value.
Mm. All right, Rob. Well, thanks again for joining us on
My
the show.
pleasure.
Yep. And we look forward to next week's topic, which we're not going to tell anybody yet what it is, are we?
No, we're not, because
No.
I have no idea what it is.
That's right.
That's right.
But we will have a topic.
But I'm open to suggestions.
We will indeed. Rob, thanks again for joining us on the show. That is indeed Rob Lees from Mortgage Choice Blue Mountains in Penrith, and you can contact them on 4739 9749 or visit their office at 3/13 Hope Street in Blaxland, and we look forward to your company again next week, Rob.